Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to lesson 88 of Chef's Apprentice, learning to cook like a pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is tuna tartare with mango and baby shrimp in a martini glass ice bowl. It seems like every restaurant today has its own version of tuna tartare. This preparation adds extra interest with mango, which pairs very well with raw tuna, sautéed baby shrimp, which adds texture and taste, and a soy sauce-based sauce, which adds umami. The martini glass ice bowl presentation is stunning. In this lesson, you will learn to break down tuna into tartare and to make a martini glass ice bowl. The challenge of this dish is to break down the tuna cleanly and quickly. The more you handle the fish and the longer that it takes to break it down, the greater the chance that bacteria will be introduced into the mixture. This is why you must wash your hands and the work surface well. Work with relatively small chunks of tuna, one at a time, keeping the others on ice, and to keep the finished tartare on ice. The ice bowl presentation, however, is mostly for show. Techniques today are dicing and chopping, making an ice bowl, seasoning, sautéing, making a sauce, making tuna tartare, adjusting seasoning, and garnishing. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about the mise en place for the tuna tartare with mango and baby shrimp. The star of this show is the tuna, and you should get sushi-grade tuna. This is big eye tuna. You don't have to use big eye, you could use some other tuna. Big eye is also known as ahi. In Japanese, it's known as akamai, and these grow to be about 250 pounds. I got this from the Wagyu Man. I'll provide a source in the description. And you'll need about a half a pound of this. This is a pound. I'm only going to be using about half of this. And right now I have it thawing in ice water because it was delivered super frozen. And this is the way that they recommend thawing it. We'll also need to have about a third of a cup of small shrimp. Now these are, I think these are like 70 to 80 per pound, and 70 to 80 count per pound. And you know, they don't have to be small shrimp or baby shrimp, but you pay a whole lot less for those. So all you need is the small shrimp. You need about a third of a cup of those blotted dry. Okay. Then we'll need to have about 1/3 of a cup of ripe mango that's been diced into about an 1/8 dice. We'll need some olive oil, and we'll need to have 1 tablespoon of shoyu, which is soy sauce, Japanese soy sauce. And I am using, it should be a pretty good soy sauce, I'm using the Motoku brand, which I think is great stuff. And you'll also need to have about 2 tablespoons of Japanese brown rice vinegar. And again, I'm using the Motoku brand, which I think is very good Japanese brown rice vinegar. You'll need to have about 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. We're going to use just a pinch of cayenne pepper, so we'll do that by eye. We need to have the juice of 1 lime, freshly squeezed. We need to have about 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame seeds. And then about 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley or cilantro. Now, you know, some people don't like cilantro, so you kind of have to know whether your guests like it or not. Some people feel like it has this soapy taste in their mouth. So if I know I'm having somebody for dinner that has that problem, I don't use cilantro, I use parsley. This is mostly for color. If you use parsley, it's going to be mostly for color. If you use cilantro, that will be adding to the flavor as well. And then we'll need to have about 1 tablespoon of chopped chives, freshly chopped chives. And then we'll need to have some caviar. Now, I wanted to use wasabi tobiko caviar for this presentation, but I couldn't find any. So I got this ginger whitefish roe from Whole Foods, and it's similar to tobiko. It doesn't have quite the same crunch as the tobiko caviar has, but I was going to use wasabi caviar, which would have that wasabi kick. So I couldn't get that, so now I have this whitefish roe with ginger, so I get the ginger kick. Okay. Then we'll also need to have some kosher salt and a pepper mill for freshly ground black pepper. That is all of the ingredients. We'll break and come back, and I'll show you the equipment for lesson 88. Okay, let's talk about the equipment for lesson 88. We need to have a cutting board and a chef's knife. We also need to have a slicing knife. Today I'm using my brand new Aratsugu Tsujihiki slicer, Japanese slicer. And you also need to have a juicer to juice that lime. 1 martini glass per person, and then 1 little prep bowl per person. Now, prep bowl is like the perfect size, because what you're going to do is you're going to partially fill this glass with water, and then you're going to float that prep bowl in there, and then you're going to freeze it. Okay, so you want something that fits in there nicely, leaves a nice amount of ice around the bowl. Okay, you could use something opaque, like a little bowl like this. That's fine. I think it looks better if you use a clear bowl, and you'll need one of these per person. Okay, then we're going to need to have a pan to saute the shrimp. I'm going to use this little wok. You'll need to have a wooden spoon and a slotted spoon to take the shrimp out of the wok. And you need to have something to blot those shrimp dry after you've sauteed them. You could use paper towels, you could use a kitchen towel. You need to have a small bowl to put the shrimp in after you take them off the heat, after they've been blotted. A small mixing bowl and spoon to mix up the sauce. You'll need to have a teaspoon. We're going to use this to basically break down the tuna, make the tartare. Then you'll need to have a stainless steel bowl inside of a stainless steel bowl. This bowl is going to have ice in it, and this bowl is going to sit in the ice. You're going to keep the tuna tartare in that while you're making it. So one stainless steel bowl that fits inside of another, that leaves enough room to have a good amount of ice around it so it stays ice cold. We'll need to have a plating spoon, and then we'll need to have a set of chopsticks for each guest. Okay, that's all the equipment. We'll come back, and start cooking. Okay, so here we have martini glass in our little prep bowl, which fits nicely inside of the martini glass. We're going to fill up this glass about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way. You could just do this at the tap, but I brought some water over here in a beaker so that it would be easier to show on camera. And then we just want to float that little bowl in the glass like that. All right, then put it in the freezer. You're going to do this with I think the description calls for enough to do for 8 small plates, because you're going to be dividing up the tuna tartare into these little bowls inside the ice bowl. So do this with 8 martini glasses if you're making for 8. I'm not making that many today. I'm not quite sure yet how many I am making. So I'm going to do the number that I need, then put them in the freezer, and just leave them in the freezer for as long as it takes to freeze. It's going to depend upon your freezer, okay? All right, the next thing on our prep list is to saute the shrimp in some olive oil and lightly seasoned with salt and pepper. So I've already got the oil hot here. Dropping in the shrimp, lightly salted, lightly pepper. Get them spread out. So we're going to saute them for about 1 to 2 minutes so that they are just cooked through and they have taken on some color on both sides. All right, so here's our shrimp. Took about a minute and a half, and it's going to depend upon the size of the shrimp that you have. You know, the smaller they are, the faster they're going to cook. We're going to turn them out onto some paper toweling with the slotted spoon, and then we're going to blot them dry. All right, blotting off the extra oil, I should say. I'm going to move them around on the paper toweling a little bit so that I can blot them again. All right, next thing we're going to do is coarsely chop them. So we do not want them to be minced. We want them to still have, you know, a little bit of size to them, okay? So that when they're mixed in with the tuna, and when you eat them, you can tell that you've gotten a little piece of shrimp. If you mince it too much, you'll never be able to taste the difference between the shrimp and the tuna. So these pieces are probably about half the size of a pea. Okay. Now we're going to put those into a bowl, and then we're going to cover them, and we're going to chill them. Okay. So we want to get them cold, however long that takes. With this amount of shrimp, it's probably going to take maybe about 15 or 20 minutes. So into the fridge, covered till they're chilled. All right, next we want to mix the sauce, which we're going to use to moisten the tuna tartare later on. First we add the shoyu, then the brown rice vinegar, sesame oil,
since it's an oil, it's harder to get out of the this little container here, so I'm just going to scrape some of it out, make sure I get it all. All right. Then I want to use just a pinch of cayenne pepper, and then the lime juice. Stir it up. Now, everything up to this point you can do in advance. You could do it earlier in the day that you're making this preparation. You could do it the day before. You could even do it 2 days before. All right, now this we are going to stir it up, and then we're going to cover this and put it in the fridge until we are ready to assemble the tartare. Now, as you can see, I have sliced the tuna into several pieces. I've put it inside of a bowl that's sitting on a bed of ice, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do before we start to make the tartare out of this tuna is we're going to wash this board thoroughly and wash our hands thoroughly. So I'm going to break and come back. I'm going to break and do that and then come back. Okay, we've cleaned the board and we have cleaned our hands. And now we're going to take a piece of the tuna out of the bowl and put it on the board, and then we're going to use the spoon to scrape the tuna away from the white membrane. Okay, we're going to do this with each piece individually. We're keeping those other pieces in the bowl that's sitting on the ice until we finish each piece. Now you can see that that after you scrape this off, you're left with this this white membrane. Okay, we're going to be throwing that away, but you want to get all the tuna off of it. All right. All right, now that's our first portion. What we're going to do is we're going to put that tuna into the bowl that's sitting on the ice, okay? And then we're going to take another piece of the tuna and do the same thing. It might also help sometimes to have a fork to hold the membrane in place. I want to have that tuna down in the bowl where it will stay cold, so it's in contact with the metal that's in contact with the ice. Okay, that's the tuna. Now that took about 10 minutes, all right? And you might have seen that I was very careful to get all of it. I didn't want to waste any because this sushi-grade tuna is very expensive. Now what I want to do is put this back down on the board. I'm going to rinse my hands, and then I'm going to chop this so it's nice and uniformly chopped. Okay, now we're going to put this back in the ice bowl, and if there's any time at all between when you do this step and when you finish this dish, put it in the fridge. Now, you shouldn't have much time in between, okay? You should be, after you do this, you should pretty much finish the dish within about 10 minutes or so. If you're going to be, if you're not going to finish it immediately, cover it and put it in the fridge until you are ready to finish it. Beautiful tuna. Okay, here we have our martini glass ice bowls. You can see that we have the ice is frozen here, and the prep bowl is nice and centered, which is nice. And we're going to keep these out at room temperature, and we're going to be plating in just a moment. Now here we have our tuna, which we've kept in the ice bowl, okay? Now what we're going to do is add some other ingredients. We're going to add the shrimp. We're going to add the mango. Adding the parsley. I have about 2 tablespoons here, but I don't think I really need that much. You want to put in enough so you're going to see the color, but you don't want to overpower it with parsley or cilantro, depending on which one you're using. Then we're going to add some freshly ground black pepper. And a little bit of salt. And mix it up. Now I want to moisten it with the sauce that we made. Now we don't want it to be soupy, okay? So we're going to add a little bit at a time. I added probably about 1/3 of it. Mix it up. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Now this has vinegar in it, so the vinegar is actually going to cook or cure that tuna, okay? So you want to be serving this pretty soon after you mix this up. Otherwise the vinegar is going to turn the tuna a different color, start to turn it a different color. Okay, now we want to taste this. Okay, now's the time to adjust the seasoning. I'm just going to add just a little bit more pepper and just a tiny pinch of salt and mix that up. Okay, now we're going to plate the tuna into the prep bowls. Now remember, depending on how many people you're serving, you're going to have to divide this tuna up. Now, so it could be that you have a very small, or I should say a small plate for the number of people in the description, or that you have a somewhat larger plate for a smaller number of people than are in the description. All right, now we want to garnish with some sesame seeds. And some chives. And finally, with a little bit of the caviar. And then we want to serve with the chopsticks on the side of the rim. Okay, that is lesson 88, tuna tartare with mango and baby shrimp in a Martini glass ice bowl. You can see photos of the final dish at my Instagram, which is at Chef's Apprentice Cook Like a Pro. Next up is tuna tempura with avocado and watermelon salad. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.